So, like I mentioned, guys, for those watching, because we are live on air right this second, what was it, about a week ago, I was lucky enough to be hooked up with ID at Xbox. We got to check out Death Squared live on Sunday right here on the Xbox Ambassadors. And right now I have with me one of the developers from SMG Studio, and you guys just got back from PAX. And let me introduce you. I have Ash with SMG. If you, how's it going, man?
Good. Or I should say, g'day, guys. Well,
Good day, yeah.
From down under.
Definitely. If you want to give a quick intro on, exactly. If you want to give a quick intro on you guys and your studio, and we'll kind of talk about the game that just launched yesterday.
Yeah. So I'm Ash. I'm the studio head. So kind of a bit of everything. We're an Aussie team, a team of about 15 now. And yeah, so Death Squared came out yesterday on consoles and Steam. It's our first console game. We've built several mobile titles before that. Been around since 2013. I've worked with the team some of them since like 2004. So quite an experienced team in that sense. But as SMG, we've been around since 2013. And yeah, you guys have been having a lot of fun with the game, which has been great to see. It's been painful sometimes to watch when people are struggling with puzzles. But I think that's part of the charm. Hopefully, the charm of the game, where you want to help someone solve a puzzle, but it's having them solve it is much more fulfilling.
It definitely is, and you got to watch my wife and I play about 20 levels before we said, that's a little taste for people to pick up the game.
Yep.
And walk us through the inspiration of some of the idea for the game and the humor and the voice, because I pick up cues from about 5 of my favorite games, so I can imagine it feels like you drew from some of those games.
Well, Pat, the game came about as a game jam game, which is a global game jam, which is, you go in on a Friday night and you end on a Sunday night with a game. It's a 48-hour intense thing. So we've pretty much done one of those like every year since 2010. And so Pat did this in 2015, solo developer, did everything himself. And during that process, he said, I didn't really go into it with any main inspiration from a game. But I said, I guess the collective games that he's played over the past kind of influenced the decision. But I think Portal 2 or Portal is probably the biggest obvious inspiration, both aesthetically, story, and kind of humor-wise, and just how the game kind of came about. But Pat didn't go in going, I want to make like a 2D or a puzzle, a very stripped-down version of Portal. It just kind of came out like that. My contribution was mainly on, we need a story, because I can't do the coding anymore, I can't do the level design, but I was like, I can definitely help on the story. So how can we add that level of intrigue to the game, where maybe if you play, 80 levels, you're playing 50 of them, you're like, what, I want to see how this plays out, the story. So we did a lot of that. So we worked with Jonathan here and Mick as well, did the voices, just trying to craft a story that isn't too heavy, but just has a lot of fun. And I've had some people say like, there is no story, but if you listening to the voiceovers and the cutscene emails and stuff, you kind of get a sense. And we have this, I feel like, a really fun story arc of how it all plays out. So have you finished the game? Have you got to the final level?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Where we left off was where we left off on the broadcast, because I figured what would be exciting for me to do was kind of record the wife and I continuing that story, if not just for posterity's sake, just for putting it out there, maybe on YouTube or something for people to watch later. We get very limited time together, so when we do, because we got 2 kids, so I figured
I've got
let's sit down and... Yeah, you get it. So I figure we'll sit down here this week and kind of get through another about 20 levels and kind of break it up into 4 parts. But just the story up to level 20, it's light, but it also has a lot of deep appreciation, whether it be in some of the voice characters or some of the arc of the story or just some of the context involved. Like, I found humor in it, and so did my wife, who isn't a gamer. So it kind of was nice to be able to bridge that gap,
Yeah, there's a lot of fourth walls. Stanley Parable was another big one where... It's a game that I think you said you hadn't played it, but like it breaks the fourth wall in terms of that. So we had a lot of fun with that. There's a few later on bits where Dave will impact the game, how the game plays during a certain level. So that's a bit of fun. We call those the messing with player levels. So that's a bit of fun as well. I haven't been watching someone live stream when they've hit one of those, but we want that to be like, okay, I get it. There's voices at the start or at the beginning of levels. And it's like, no, there's a few there where it kind of really tweaks the way the game plays. So that was a bit of fun. And yeah, we like to be funny and have fun, and we didn't want to take ourselves seriously. And we just wanted to, have a story where, you can get invested in it and we can have a kind of payoff at the end versus it's just like, well, after 80 levels or a certain number of levels, it just ends. There's a real conclusion to the game, if you will. And there's a spoiler alert, there's a happy and a sad ending. So, hopefully you can see both of those.
Gotcha. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the beginning levels. So for me, when we first played, about 3 or 4 levels in, the spikes came out, and then we just started walking and got spiked to death, and it was shocking, unexpected, and funny all at the same time. Was that the intent of the, let's say, lack of a little bit of instruction on how to proceed in certain levels, just to get that rise out of people? Because I thought it was great, and I don't know what the response was on your side.
Yeah, no, Pat was very conscious and we've tested this at almost every pack since 2015. So PAX Australia, West, East, and South. It's a game where we just give you the controller and say, play as a team, and that's all you need to know. The game should teach you itself, and we obviously don't want to teach you in a way that's so obvious. So we like having that surprise element. It's about surprise, discovery, mastery, and then completion. So it's important that the game teaches you the basic elements. We don't have that many elements. We kind of play them up, but also that you discover it for yourself. We don't want to be, okay, watch spikes will kill you. You learn that, and this does this. We want you to do that. We want you to learn that instinctively, like you were a test subject, really. The game jam, the original theme of it was what happens next. And so that was the inspiration. Like, you don't know what's going to happen next. And so Pat kept that kind of theme going through, that you learn through discovery. And we think that's more interesting than, having pop-ups saying spikes are dangerous or, get to here. It's a very easy premise. Blocks get to the end zone. How many different ways can we shake that up without having to, really explain it to the people?
Yeah, so explaining it to people is kind of an interesting thing. When I was asked for my interest in the game, the specific ask was, you need to play it someone local that doesn't play games, and that kind of threw me for a loop. I said, well, what is the intent behind this game? I knew nothing about the game, and I didn't want to know anything because I wanted to go into it fresh with my wife, and it turned into something really great, and I can't imagine that that wasn't your intention. Obviously, you wanted to make sure that could bridge bringing a non-gamer into the gaming world, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like Pat said, he loves playing. His wife's a big gamer as well, but there's not enough couch co-op games. But also, there's so many combative games, or those party games where it's everyone versus the other person. And if you're playing with someone who's not a gamer, they're just like, oh, look, I don't like playing that because it's no fun. You guys keep kicking my ass. Whereas this one, it's like you're playing together and you're problem solving and you're using just the analog stick. So it's like the accessible Portal 2. Portal 2 is an amazing game, but you need to know first-person shooter mechanics to play it. Run, here, jump, turn around, shoot the portal, jump in, and then you're good. So your grandma can't play that. But so when we asked for streamers, can you play with your grandma, your mum, your little kids, someone who doesn't normally play games, because we wanted to show it was that accessible, because it was a big design decision. I early on, I kept saying to Pat, let's add some Super Meat Boy elements where it's fast and frantic, and you have to time it right. And he's like, no, that will restrict a lot of people who can't, who get frustrated with it's it's all about reaction. This is all about logic, and the game kind of moves at its own at the speed you dictate. So that was a big design decision to make sure it's if you can go up, down, left, right, you can play this game.
So then explain to me how we got into the party mode, which is where it's 4 players.
Yeah. And
I haven't opened that mode up yet because I just don't have 4 people here. Kind of talk a little bit about that mode and where that came from and how it kind of ties into the game in total.
Yeah, so we were very conscious we didn't want it to seem like a 4-player game because, again, trying to get 4 people in the one place is quite hard. So we definitely want it to be, you can play single player, you can play, it's best as 2 players, but we also know that, if you can get a bunch of people around, you can actually play 4-player with 2 people. You both control 2 characters each with your sticks. So,
okay.
And you can play 3-player where one person does 2 and everyone does 1 each. So it's just it's more chaotic with 4 players. and Pat just said it's a lot of fun with 4 players as well. Originally, it was just a 2-player, and so it's just again, it's just adding an extra amount of content. We've got 40 of those levels, and it's just extra chaos. So you might master the 2-player mode, but hey, trying to wrangle or trying to coordinate 4 people is actually much harder. I found it was an interesting one where someone said, oh, I've played the game as red, and I played a bunch of levels, and then I played again and I was blue, and I had a different experience because I forgot what I didn't even pay attention to what the other person was doing. And so it's kind of a nice way you can almost play the game twice as each of the characters because you have different roles. Some levels it's quite easy on one character, some levels it's the opposite.
I definitely noticed that when we had that little snafu with my system. We had to restart, and we were different controllers.
I want to be blue.
A while.
Oh no, I don't want to be blue. Yeah.
My thing was, Ash, is I think what you guys did really well is you introduced a customizability asset into the game, which a lot of games don't do. And when you do that, you kind of made the cube your own. And I fell in love with the fact that I created my own little guy, and I didn't want to change. And I think that's like a really good nod to the success of your game. It kind of created that attachment to this is my block, and I love it, and there are many others like it, but this one is my own.
That's a good quote. Yeah, I mean, we actually wanted to have more customization where we'd have special guest bots and stuff, but just wrangling time to get approvals for those things take a lot of time. So that's something we're looking to add, later on, where you could have special guests from your favorite indie or others commercial games in there. But yeah, it was also important for me also because the game, when you look at screenshots, it's a game where screenshots, it doesn't really sell that compared to your Horizon Zero Dawns and Zeldas and stuff, which look so beautiful and vast and epic. Our game looks very small, and it's all about the gameplay. So having those customization just gave it a little bit more of personality and humor to it, which same with just using the D-pad where you can move. It's purely just there for aesthetics, just to give that extra bit of element. So when you do live streaming or when you're playing it, you can have a bit of fun while you're waiting around for some other player. So yeah, I'm glad you guys catched on to that.
Yeah, and so what I'm hearing you say though is we'll have an F5 Penguin block in the near future. Is what I'm hearing.
Maybe. Yeah. It was like a lot more as we're getting down to the final stages and we're polishing. It was kind of one of those I kept putting my head. Let's add this, and the guy's like, oh, we want to spend that time polishing the levels and crafting the story and voiceovers a lot versus just adding those aesthetics. And I thought, you know what, we can wait for those post-launch.
Makes sense. So let's put our Xbox hat on for a little bit because we are here with the Xbox ambassadors.
Yeah.
How has the experience been working with ID at Xbox and getting your game published to the Xbox One console? And has that been an easy process for you guys, or how has that whole experience been for you?
Yeah, I mean, for us, compared to mobile publishing, console publishing is a lot. It's like doing your tax times 10. So if you like filling out forms and doing that, you'd love the process. But it wasn't painful. We had some great people at ID at Xbox that kind of, held our hand through it. I think we kind of annoyed them because we probably sent like 10 emails over 5 different threads per day. But, getting the dev kits and stuff was really easy. We signed up, we met Chris Charla at, I think it was PAX, maybe 2014 or 2015. And then, within a week we had 2 dev kits ready to go. That was great. So, the barrier to entry there for us as developers, we had a bit of a proven record on the mobile side, so that was good. Was very easy. And yeah, I think a lot of it, like if we didn't have those people holding our hand and helping us along the way, it just would have been impossible because there's just so many forms and checks and balances. But when they're helping you out and saying, oh, actually, you forgot to do this and that, it really helps to have that there. But it's a lot of forms to fill out, even just the certification, because mobile, you just put a game out there and you're good to go. Here it's like, oh, we need to get ESRB, we need to get Australian ratings, UK ratings, PEGI, and all this stuff. And even that process is not as simple as you think. Like to get PEGI, you have to know this secret email address to email to get an account to then you can then apply for it. So it's all like secret handshakes and stuff because maybe they don't want people just emailing randomly like, hey, can I rate my game? So it's a long process, but and to get a rating, you have to almost have to have the final game. So you have to then send them a video of the whole game being played and your script to get it all rated because they want to make sure there's no references. Our game's a little bit easier than say like a open world game, which is probably 200 hours. We've got about 10 hours of content, so a little bit easier to send them a 10-hour video and say here's the game. But if you like filling out forms, so myself and Steph, that was our job for like 2 solid weeks. We're just sending emails, filling out forms, chasing up people, like Peggy and all that to get stuff rated. So yeah, it's not fun, but it's if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, I guess.
It's very true. So the game's been out now for about a day and maybe a little bit more, depending on our time zones here. I know we're over there. I think it's sunshine over by you. It just got dark here, so
yeah, it's like middle of the day on Thursday. We're in the future.
In the future, it's so crazy thinking about that, right? So the game's been out for a little over a day. How's the response been? I know the game's been out for PAX and you've had it kind of play tested with a lot of people, but now that it's out in the public, how's that been for you?
Yeah, I think it's overall really positive. Like it's amazing, and we're getting those things where people say like, oh, I played with someone who a streamer's going like, like, look, I hate puzzle games, but I like this game. Like that kind of gives us a lot of that's a lot of praise that we're able to make a puzzle game that people who don't like puzzle games can play. So feedback's been overall really positive, and I think we just play the waiting game. With mobile, once you launch, within a day you've got millions of people playing your game, and it's almost like instant feedback. This is a lot more of a slow burn because it's not as because we're a paid game, not a free game. So you're not going to get 1 million downloads in 2 days. So maybe a big game would, but for us, it's a bit more slow burn. But everyone that's played is saying all the things we want them to feel and say, which has been great. It was weird seeing, I think it was the Carnage K4 guy struggling on level 3 yesterday. It was kind of, oh my god, is he struggling? And then level 4 he was fine. So it's definitely interesting seeing all the different experiences. I'm relieved that seeing when people are playing it, they're having fun live, and people are having fun watching people live stream it. My thought was it would be less enjoyable to watch someone play this game, but people are really having fun, and even in watching how a solution's done, playing it's totally different. So we're kind of confident there that unless you really want to watch for the solutions, you can watch someone play it and then still enjoy the game.
Yeah, it definitely feels that a lot of the enjoyment, at least for me, playing it for what turned into almost 2 hours of playing it, was that it was the interaction between two people of making that connection. Because there's only really one way to beat the puzzle. You got to do X, Y, and Z to complete the puzzle. So having us kind of talk through that, and as someone that's known my wife for 12 years now, trying to connect on that level and solve a puzzle together is not something that we do on an everyday basis. So having that interaction was fun, and I've not really had a lot of games other than, like you mentioned, Portal 2 that did that. And with her, it was not easy because of the controls you mentioned. You had to have a lot more experience with FPS. So for me, that was fantastic, and it was so enjoyable, and it surpassed all of my expectations because I just didn't know what I was getting into, and I really enjoyed not knowing. And as someone in the press who's been doing this for so long, you get trailers and you get NDAs and you get embargoes, you got to sign, you got to watch all these screenshots and videos, and you already know what the game's about before you even start. Yeah. And for this, I'm like, I'm not even going to watch the trailer until 5 minutes before the show. Like I made a commitment to myself, and I was so glad I did it.
Yeah, that's great. And I would recommend, like, if you're gonna play. How old are your kids?
My older one is 7. He's getting into like Minecraft and things like that. My younger one's only 1, so we got some time there for him.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say keep it like 7, maybe 8 plus, because we made a few kids cry at PAX East. I think they were like 5 and 6. They're playing with their mum, and they couldn't solve one of the puzzles, and the mum's like, "Oh, we got to go," and they just started bawling their eyes out because they hadn't finished the level. So yeah, 7's a pretty good age. No. I think you can play that. But yeah, it's trying to create those interactions. I think I saw a talk at GDC from the Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes guys, and they said their game was about communication. And I think that was a bit of a light bulb moment for me on how to position the game from a marketing point of view, saying, yeah, it is about crafting those new interactions where you're working together. You want to high five each other versus like just defeat the other person. And It definitely creates different group dynamics where, you can see, you get a group of 4 and you can see who's the natural leader. So there's a lot of pointing to the screen. No, you go over there. Okay, red, stop, don't do anything. And that doesn't happen much in the games. And also just from a, I've got a 4.5-year-old. Just trying to have games that I can play in front of my kid, it's quite hard.
Yeah.
Outside of a few, they're all too scary for him, or it's all about violence. And I can't keep playing car games all the time. So, having a game where they can play and enjoy, like my 4.5-year-old, now he's seen a bunch of levels. He's kind of telling friends, like, no, go left. You got to go around that. And it fascinates me because I never really let him play games, and he's able to remember these sequences. So, yeah, I think that's
really great.
Big thing for us is make it accessible. I would love more grandmas or grandpas on the live streams. That's my ultimate. And we tried to wrangle a few in Australia, but none of the retirement homes would let us in. I think they thought it was like too much work. So we're like ringing them up saying, "Can we just come in and play test our game? It'll be really great mental learning thing for them. Keep away dementia," and they're like, no, that just sounds like a lot of work and they may get hurt. So it's like,
well, I will make it a mission, Ash, to get the grandparents involved in any way that I can, because that could be a fun experience to watch two people who really have never touched anything.
Grandparents and your kid, that'd be amazing, because people love solving problems, puzzles. So that would be amazing if you could do that.
Oh man, that's going to be one of my new projects now, is to get my 7-year-old with his grandfather and have them go at it there. Yeah. So couple last questions for you, and we'll let you go, because I know you've probably got a lot to do here since the game has just come out. $20. Tell me about the price point decision and what led you to that price to get that game into the market.
Yeah, that's we work with Stride on the PR side, and they recommended that price, and that's like the sweet spot where with the amount of content we've got in there, we've got quite a lot. It's good value. It's not too low, too high. And from a studio that's done a lot of free-to-play mobile games, $20 on the mobile side is unheard of. So, but we feel like that's a good price and good value. And I think that's kind of the sweet spot there. It's kind of the market's kind of dictating that as being the price point. And when people say that, like, oh, $20, yeah, that sounds great. That was good to hear at PAX. So. But
definitely,
people be like, $20 for a game, but they'll spend like $30 on a plushie toy or a some kind of Minecraft hammer, and it's weird how different values of how people price things.
Definitely, is there going to be any paid DLC or things like that coming in the future?
We're definitely going to add more vault levels for free. I think because we've just got a whole bunch of levels that again, were too crazy, too hard, or impossible sometimes, and we're just going to chuck those in the vault for free. And then depending on how we go, we'd definitely look at doing a DLC, just trying to work out how we can work the story into it. But that would have a lot more content there. So expect some vault levels being added for free later on, and then we'll look at a level pack further down the track.
Definitely. And one last question for you then, Ash. If you were to talk to somebody right now in the chat room or in person, and they were on the fence about buying your game, what would you tell them? What would be your pitch right now to get them to buy your game? You got 30 seconds.
I think if you're looking for a unique experience for you and your gamer partner, or someone who doesn't game, Death Squared's definitely a unique game that there's not many games out there on the Xbox now or will be. So yeah, it's definitely a great single player, 2-player game, and then pull out 4-player when you got some friends over. You won't go wrong.
You really can't go wrong.
You're supporting us. You're supporting a small studio that's got a diverse range of games and really passionate about these games. So yeah.
SMG Studio, based in the darkest jungles of Sydney, Australia. The game is Death Squared, out available on Steam, PS4, and Xbox One. You can go to deathsquared.com for more info, or on your Xbox One store.